Wow, that was a loud announcement. Welcome everybody to our May 2021 United Way Community Advisory Council meeting. I'm going to put the agenda up on the screen, and then I'm going to turn the meeting over to Bob Mack to help co-run the agenda. And give me 1 second, and there we go. Everybody should see, hopefully, and it's something that looks like an agenda on the screen. Yes, okay. All right, Bob, so the floor is yours. Did Bob disappear?
Thought I unmuted myself. I did unmute myself this time. So good morning, everyone, and welcome on this beautiful Thursday here. We'll start out our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So do we should we do some quick introductions, or
I think we probably should do a round of introductions, because
it's always the challenge of the introductions. So maybe, Mike, if you could briefly take the agenda off the screen so everybody can see the gallery view, if you will. And the best way I found to do this is that we introduce ourselves and then we hand it off to somebody else. So I will start introducing myself. I'm Bob Mack, the welfare officer for the city of Nashua, and I am the current chair of the governance board for United Way. And I will hand it over to Peter Challoner.
Good morning, Peter Challoner. I am currently retired and plan to stay that way. And I am the chair of the finance committee. Thank you. And I'll hand that off to Dan.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning, everybody. Dan Monroe. I'm with EFI in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and I am the treasurer of United Way and on the finance committee. I'll turn it over to you, Bob Larmouth.
Bob Larmouth. I'm retired from Hollis, member of the governance board and chair of the nominating committee. I'll introduce Andy Armstrong.
Hi, I'm Andy Armstrong. I'm Senior Minister of First Church Nashua, and I'll turn it over to Jay.
Hi, Jay Mankara, and I'm Executive Director of the National Regional Planning Commission, and I'm on the Events Committee, and I will turn it over to Doug Howard.
I'm Doug Howard. I'm with the Front Door Agency in Nashua, New Hampshire. I will turn it over to Deb.
Hi, I'm Deb Howes. I'm a teacher in Nashua. I'm also with the Nashua Teachers Union and the New Hampshire AFL-CIO and the National Labor Coalition, and on the United Way Advocacy Committee. And I'll turn it over to John Jersick.
Thank you, Deb. Good morning, John Jersick, President, St. Joseph Hospital. I'm on the Advocacy Committee with Deb and Mike, and I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia.
Good morning, everybody. This is Cynthia. I am the president and CEO of Greater Nashua Mental Health. And I will turn it over to Paula.
I'm not sure that was a great choice, since Paula could be at her.
It appears Paula had to step away. So why don't we turn it over to Mayor Donches?
Hi, I'm Jim Donches, the mayor here in Nashua, and I will turn it over to Amir.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amir Tusi. I'm with Riviera University, Dean of Business and Security Studies, and I chair the Strategic Planning Committee. Now, I'm not sure who's left. Sorry, I'm driving right now.
That's all right, Amir. We can go back to Paula because she just sat down at her computer. Paula, if you would introduce yourself and then pass it on.
Hi, Paula Moran, Resource Development Committee.
And let's go to Wendy Hunt.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Wendy Hunt, President and CEO of the Greater Nashua Chamber of Commerce.
All right, let's go. I'll take this over. We'll go to Joe Leahy.
All right. Hi, I'm Joe Leahy. I'm the medical director of the emergency department at Southern Hampshire Medical Center.
All right, and then we can go to Liz.
Morning, I'm Liz Fitzgerald from United Way staff, community impact work.
Excellent. And then we have, last but not least, Sam.
Hi there, Sam Casista, United Way staff, corporate partnerships.
And did we skip over Mike? Does everybody know Mike Alphaberg?
I hope so by now. Everybody knows me, but yes, I'm Mike. I'm with United Way with Liz and Sam and Sarah, who's on vacation today, as well as our colleague Sharon, who doesn't work on Thursdays.
Good option to have, right, Peter? And Bob. Okay, so well, thank you everybody for that. And Mike, if you want to pop the agenda back up on the screen, that would be helpful for me.
I certainly will do that.
And welcome to Wendy, who has rejoined United Way and participating on our advisory council. So welcome, Wendy. All right, introductions. So now moving on to the Gate City Light Award, which is a proclamation from Mayor Donches. So let me turn it over to Mr. Mayor.
So the Gate City Light Award is an award that the city gives out every year to a social service or nonprofit that has done a really good job for the community. And there's a group of citizens who evaluates the situation and tries to decide who really is the most deserving for the current year. And this year, the committee decided, the Gate City Light Committee decided that United Way has done such a good job during the pandemic that they should get this year's award. So what we do every year is come up and we do
looks like some technical difficulties.
Yeah, Mayor seems to have lost connectivity for the moment.
Yes.
I'm not sure if he's
All right,
aware
we'll
of that.
see. Well, we will see.
Well, congratulations.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Joe. I think what we'll do is wait and see. It looks like he disappeared altogether.
Yeah,
so
he
probably
may
lost
have had to
connection.
reconnect here.
So I know that the mayor had said that he needs to hop off for a little bit this morning. Maybe we can come back to that when he rejoins us.
Sure. And I think we can welcome Matt Burdett, who just jumped on a moment ago as well.
Yep, sorry, I was having some connectivity issues
No,
too.
that's part of the deal, Matt. We did some brief introductions. If you just want to quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll move on.
Sure, Matt Burdett. I'm the publisher and editor of The Telegraph here in Nashua.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll see if the mayor rejoins us in a moment, but again, he did have to jump off up for another call, and we can revisit that part of the agenda a little bit later. What do we have next on our agenda, Mike?
We have United Way updates.
All right.
Which is really kind of me.
Okay, take it away.
Sounds good. I will do that. So first of all, a couple of these are sort of personal and award-y type of announcements as well that I wanted to go through. I'd like to congratulate my colleague and our friend Samantha Casista, who is going to be graduating tonight from the Leadership Greater Nashua program. That's a program run by the Chamber of Commerce. I went through myself eons ago when the program was very different and they had no expectations of their participants. And now they actually do think they need to do something. So Samantha, congratulations. I'm looking forward to your graduation ceremony this evening.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Then I wanted to also briefly touch upon another awards ceremony, which is coming up next week. And I think I sent something out to everybody to announce that. The Greater Nashua Chamber, Wendy's organization, every year has what they call their Eminence Awards. These are awards of excellence for members of the community and businesses and organizations. There are a variety of categories, and I wanted to make note of a couple of nominations for finalists at the Eminence Awards. For me, notably, is that two of our advisory council members, Amir Tusi, who heads up our strategic planning efforts, and also Peter Schallner, who chairs our finance committee, are both finalists in the category of Volunteer of the Year for the community, which is just a fabulous recognition for all that they do. And the third finalist is their colleague, Jay Dinkle's colleague at Enterprise Bank, Lori Piper, also a fabulous volunteer. So really great, and congratulations, Peter and Amir. You guys well deserved. I have no idea who's going to win. Wendy knows, but we could probably apply pressure right in this meeting to squeeze that out of her, but we won't do that. The other categories I wanted to mention, there's Large Business of the Year. And again, we have two finalists who are represented on our advisory council, Southern New Hampshire Health and St. Joseph's Hospital, which is really also just amazing and not altogether surprising considering the year that we just had, being the pandemic year, and all that the hospitals have done to support our communities. So thank you so much, and congratulations to both of you. That's fantastic. In Small Business of the Year, I also wanted to make mention that one of the finalists is Boston Billiards Club and Casino, which has been a fantastic supporter of many nonprofits in the community through their charitable gaming, is approaching $10 million in funds that they've donated out to the community since they started charitable gaming, has provided funds not just to United Way, but also to many of our community partners that has really helped to bring in a brand new source of revenue to the nonprofit sector. So congratulations to them. We're pulling for them. And then I guess last but not least, there's a brand new category, which came up this year called Community Hero of the Year, which is designated to specific organizations which have kind of gone above and beyond and out of their way and done things differently during the pandemic to support the community. We are a finalist in that category at United Way, along with two really, really terrific partners and friends of ours, Great America Downtown, run by Paul Shea, which we've partnered with numerous times throughout the pandemic to support our local business community, and do what we could to make sure that everybody stayed in business and safe and healthy throughout all of this, as well as the YMCA of Greater Nashua, which stepped up as a partner of ours and on their own in incredible ways to do new and different things that they had never done either. So even to this day, every single week, we're partnering with the YMCA to help support our pop-up food pantries that are running throughout the community. So I would say congratulations to everybody. It's all of that makes it kind of a big United Way Day, because those are all organizations that we're connected to in one way or another. So that's coming up next week. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to also congratulate everyone, but mention that our theme this year is celebrating our diversity. Mike is going to be our moderator for that panel. I greatly appreciate that. And our panelists will be Kira Morehouse from Enterprise Bank, Nelson Mercado, who probably many of you know from Nashua, and Will Arvello from the Business and Economic, the BEA, excuse me, of the state. So it should be a great, great celebration.
Yeah, it really should be, and it's going to be a nice event, and it's an in-person event, may I add, at Sky Meadow. Obviously, a little bit, sort of not as big. It's not going to be 400 people packed into their ballroom, but it's a little more limited. But it's going to be really, really great to do something in person. It's been a long time since we've done a lot of that, so that's really great. I'm going to take that as sort of a segue into what is reopening and in-person look like with us at United Way. As I'm sure most of you are aware by now, the Board of Aldermen voted on Tuesday evening to rescind Nashua's mask ordinance. And so with the mayor's signature on that, effective moving forward, Nashua will have no mask ordinance per se. There are a couple of places where masks will still be required indoors, primarily public transportation, which is also a federal guideline, as well as healthcare settings, including the hospitals, which is also a federal guideline. The mayor has also been given the authority to make a determine as far as whether public buildings like City Hall or the library will require masks or not. That's at his discretion as the mayor. But not, I should say, not including the public schools. That's under the discretion of the Board of Education, a totally kind of separate decision-making body. What does that mean for us at United Way? We've discussed at length internally our kind of approach that we're going to be taking. And I've also talked with Joe Leahy about this approach, and we're hoping that this is going to work for us. And it's probably similar to what a lot of other folks are going to do, is think of us as a small business that's very public facing in many ways. We're going to be posting signs on our doors today, actually, that say that if you are vaccinated, you can feel free to enter with or without a mask at your discretion. That's completely up to you. And by the way, in our offices, every single one of us, with only one exception of one of our fiscal agency employees, every single one of us, including our tenants, is fully vaccinated. So we're in a good position to be open to the public in that way. We've prepared ourselves well for that. But the other part of the signage will say that if you have not been fully vaccinated or vaccinated at all, we do ask that you wear a mask upon entry into our building. And I'm going to have some masks there available at the door for those. We've all forgotten one when we go to Market Basket, right? How many thousands of times has that happened? And you get to the door and you're like, where's my mask? So we're going to ask people to do that. And in a polite and kind and non-confrontational way, we're also going to ask people when they enter without a mask, just to remind them that our policy is, if you're not vaccinated, to please wear a mask. Along with that, in-person meetings is something we're looking to re-engage with, as much as everybody loves Zoom meetings. And actually, there are a lot of advantages to this type of meeting, not the least of which is the efficiency and that comes along with it in terms of time, and the convenience that you can be like Bob Mack and sit on your deck and put on your headset and just look like you're enjoying life,
Looks can be deceiving, but we can move on.
That's right. So our approach to in-person meetings is going to be to use the technology that we've gotten pretty good at to implement the option for hybrid meetings. So that because we're saying that if you haven't been vaccinated, we prefer that you wear a mask inside of our offices. It's not that we won't want people to come into our offices, but we also, I'm not a big fan of doing things in person with a mask on in a meeting environment. Like, that's just like, I need to see your face if we're going to be in person. So we're going to encourage people to also choose the option, if they want to have a virtual option. So we'll have simultaneous in-person and Zoom meetings that we'll be setting up. If you are fully vaccinated, then feel free to join us. And we're probably going to have some restrictions on the number of people in person, just so we don't super overcrowd the place. And we're going to go at it gently, but we definitely are going to move forward with some more in-person stuff. And I think that's, are there any questions about that or thoughts? I'll take silence as an indication that everybody's trying to talk and they're on mute, which we all do. So a couple of other, and thank you, Joe, by the way, for your advice to help to think that through. It's been really good to have a medical professional to bounce these ideas off of as we evolve our strategies. So a little bit about some updates from United Way COVID response. Talk about COVID response. I'm going to talk about events. I'm going to talk about some fundraising, some of our advocacy work, and then we'll end on our Friday United discussion. And this is going to be about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Leahy and John Jerzak to give updates this month about our medical institutions. So first of all, our COVID response, the primary focus of what we're moving toward is along with many other organizations, is we're moving away from like what's our immediate response today to the crisis at hand, which has more or less not a crisis at hand. And if you think just a year ago, we were in the business of, making hand sanitizer, in partnership with a local distillery. And, I had Liz scrounging around the community to find toilet paper for our nonprofits who were out of toilet paper. And we were partnering with Great American Downtown in the city to buy PPE so that our businesses could scramble to stay open. Those were immediate response needs. We were doing things like we were distributing food to school kids because the school's department could not get employees. They were all out on COVID related FMLA. So we partnered with the school district ultimately to distribute over 100,000 grab and go meals last year at this time. These were emergency, immediate needs that we stepped in to fill the gap on. And over time, there have been immediate needs that have evolved, but those are not those anymore. Then we moved into a heavy duty phase of really supporting the educational needs of our community. And this was, especially as we got toward the tail end of summer and school year started to look like, what is school going to look like? And it became apparent that the 2020-2021 school year was going to start out very much in a remote mode. That meant that kids needed a lot more technology than they had, and they needed a lot more internet connectivity than they had. And teachers needed, resources to help support their kids and families. So that's when we moved into refurbishing hundreds and hundreds of laptops. Ultimately, we ended up refurbishing over 800 laptops that we distributed in the community to students. We ended up implementing the program with the hotspots so that kids could get connected to the internet. I continue to say this: if your class is online and you can't get online, it's pretty straightforward. You're not in class, and it's just as simple as that. So we ended up connecting over 900 kids to the internet through our hotspot program. Over the course of the year, those needs have evolved. And now we're moving very much more into sort of a sustainability mode. What does the community need for the sort of intermediate term now that other agencies perhaps aren't able to address on their own, or it doesn't really fit their mission, or there are gaps that we've identified. So that includes, that definitely includes some food supports and some food security work that still continues. We're operating our 10 weekly pop-up food pantries, which is a partnership that we have with the Soup Kitchen and the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, where between the four partners, the pop-up pantries are manned and staffed by United Way volunteers in 10 different locations throughout the week. That program, since it started, has connected almost 10,000 individuals to food resources that they did not otherwise have. And we also look at that as the opportunity to connect people to other resources that they might not know about. Do they know that they can call 211 to learn about fuel support? Do they know that the CAP agencies, including Southern New Hampshire Services, have support for people for rental assistance? Do they know that the Salvation Army actually does some delivery of food for people who are homebound? These are the types of, it's kind of a lead it's an opportunity to talk with the community in a different way when they're there for food supports. So that continues to go on and will throughout the summer. We're also shifting a lot of our emphasis to the support of our Learn United tutoring program. It is absolutely our belief that the shutdown and the subsequent educational gaps that resulted from using less than perfect technology to as a replacement for in-person learning, those gaps are going to continue to rear their ugly face for years to come, frankly. So kids, we can choose as a community probably two paths, and one is the well, okay, it is what it is path, right? And I don't think anybody here at United Way feels like that's a good strategy, and it's certainly not the United Way. We can go down the path number two, which is partner with the school district, partner with our local youth agencies, and do what we can to support kids who are exhibiting learning shortfalls, academic shortfalls. And so we're continuing to do that. We're doing that through our volunteer-driven tutoring program, which has continued to grow and is going to run throughout the summer and into the fall. And we have tutors that are set up that will meet in person or by remote at locations like the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, and meet up with a student that they're partnered with and work on their homework. In essence, that's what we're really talking about, is what I like to refer to as the world's largest homework club. So that's continuing, and that's going to continue to grow and evolve, and we're really proud of that work. And I'll say Sarah has done a fabulous job in helping to recruit the volunteers and to make that happen. So our COVID response is evolving. The other thing I wanted to mention specifically related to COVID is we've done quite a bit of work, which I would call sort of soft advocacy on promoting a message about people getting vaccinated in the community. We produced a PSA video that included, amongst other people, the stars of the show included Peter Challoner from our board and the mayor. I was in that as well. And I also kind of forced my family to participate, and a lot of diverse faces from the community were in that as well. And that actually is played on MUR in a 30-second version, and we have a 90-second version, which is playing online on YouTube and is on Facebook as well. Just encouraging a message, not a public health science-y message. I think we've all heard enough of that. Like, we're all sort of armchair epidemiologists at this point, and I don't know that that's a role that nobody wants to hear me talk about positivity test rates for COVID. That's not in a great message. But what people do want to hear, I believe, is the why. Why did I get vaccinated? And so that's and what's in it for me. And those are the positive messages we're trying to promote. We're also working, and Liz is spearheading this quite a bit, to help partner our public health department with employers in the community that might benefit from an on-site vaccination clinic. Part of, we're at, statewide, we're at about 50% fully vaccinated, somewhere thereabouts. The remaining 50% is going to be the more challenging part. There are people in that group that are going to be vaccine hesitant and vaccine resistant, and that's going to still happen. But there are a lot of people who there's also just a plain old convenience factor. Can I get away from my job to go do this thing? Is it easy for me to do? So partnering with public health, in particular, to be at on-site locations to do these types of clinics is something that we're trying to help out with and support. And so that's really kind of the COVID work and how it's evolved for us over time. Whew. Any questions about any of that? All right. Okay, so I'm going to pivot here a little bit to an update on events, including our Days of Caring, our skydiving event, and our Over the Edge event. So Days of Caring, we really never stopped doing Days of Caring throughout the entire pandemic, including in person. We did food packaging events in person at the Adult Learning Center with people fully masked, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that, you know, we had two events throughout the pandemic that produced over 20,000 meals for the community, and that was an in-person Day of Caring. So we kind of said, how can we do this safely? We had a community farming event last year to build a community garden in French Hill, and we have another one planned for this fall. We had our baby shower in person, very different than our traditional baby shower at the community college. We had it in the parking lot at United Way, and we're planning another event for later this year. We had our shoebox project, which we still did last year and which we're planning for this year. So that's all upcoming, and those are all opportunities for any of you to participate, and for you also to encourage people from the community to participate. The Days of Caring has been something that we've really tried to stick with and not let go because of how it brings people together around a common mission of supporting Greater Nashua. Skydiving, our second annual skydiving event is coming up in about 2 weeks. It's actually, I think it's 2 weeks from Saturday. We have a larger team this year than we had last year. We actually have 12 people who are going to be, as Ken Grabo would say, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, including me again. And by the way, I'm still afraid of heights. So anybody who wants to go as my surrogate, you know, just raise your hand in the chat and that would be just fine. But we're definitely doing that again. And our goal is, again, to raise something in the $20,000, $25,000 range, with the funds being dedicated specifically to our fund, which supports homeless youth in our community. So this is one of the few events we do where the fundraising is very restricted and targeted. That fund this past year has done a lot of good in the community. It helped to fund the startup of the Stepping Stones program. It helped to pay for also equipment, including like a refrigerator and a freezer that we put into Stepping Stones. It also helped pay for specific supports to people like in the community, so kids in the community who needed technology, needed hotspots, need some clothing. It's even occasionally paid for a little bit of an emergency hotel stay for families that have homeless kids. It's the only fund of its type in the community. I want to emphasize that. There's a lot of dollars in the community to support homelessness. There are very few dollars in the community. They're completely available to be used with limited parameters. Most of the funding that's available is through federal grants, and federal grants are very restricted. You can do this, you can't do that. It's specifically for the program. This is a very different kind of a fund because really the question is, does it involve a homeless youth and what can we do to support them? And so it's a super important tool for us in the toolbox of our community to support youth who are experiencing homelessness. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. If you don't want to jump out of the plane by yourself and you don't want to jump out of the plane on my behalf, then I don't know, maybe you can pay me by way of a donation to jump out of the plane. There's your third choice. Donations are always accepted at United Way. Your money is good with us. Let's just say that. Yeah, thumbs up to you, Bob. Thank you. We also have Over the Edge, our other ridiculous event that involves heights and scary things. We canceled Over the Edge last year because of the pandemic. One of the few things we did cancel because of the large numbers of people that it draws to the center of Manchester to view and participate and observe what's going on. But this year we're definitely moving ahead. We moved it back a little bit in the summer just to be on the safe side, which looks more and more like that was a really smart decision. It's scheduled for the 16th and 17th of August. What I will say is we already have more teams signed up now than we had signed up before the event was canceled last time. We have more rappellers signed up than we had before the event was canceled last time. And Samantha's already done a really great job working on sponsorships for that event. So Over the Edge is going to be fabulous this year. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I'm going to guess it's going to be, probably somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 that are going to get raised. It's already, raised about $26,000, $27,000, and it really hasn't actually even started. So that's pretty exciting. And there's definitely, and I mean this in all seriousness, there's definitely still space on the United Way team to join Over the Edge. So Liz has done it. I've done it. Susan McHugh did it in years past. Who knows? If you know somebody who's interested in, rappelling in a very safe way from a 300-foot high building, it's actually pretty cool. It's kind of scary, I'm not going to lie, but it's super safe. It's very cool, and it's a really great fundraiser. And the money that we raise for our team is unrestricted funding, which is the kind of dollars that we use to invest in grants in the community. So it's super, super important funding when we look at our community partner dollars. Oh, Cynthia Whitaker's online. Cynthia Whitaker has done this as well. So, and has a team for Greater Nashua Mental Health this year. So if you know anybody or yourself, really, truly, seriously, we're recruiting people actively right now for that team, and just connect them to me and I'll tell them what it's all about. And I'm doing it again too.
Mike?
Briefly, yes. Oh, Paula, are you joining us?
No,
for
I'm
Over the
volunteering
Edge?
Tom again.
Oh, well, if you're like Paula and you want to sacrifice your spouse to one of these events, that's okay too. That's another strategy.
Yeah, no, he definitely wants to be on the United Way team. And also too, I was wondering, are we going to have any, celebrities this year like we have in the past, like, politicians and local media?
Well, local media it's on their radar, but they're non-committal. And that's in particular because MUR, as part of Hearst Media, has been kind of told, like, don't commit to doing things yet. So would I be surprised? I won't be surprised at all if we have somebody from MUR, but we cannot yet get a commitment from them. But Jamie Staten, who's done this in years prior, it's on his radar. He's great at doing it. And so we'll see about that. We do have a commitment. Kelly Ayotte is going to participate again. She couldn't last year because of family commitments, but it's on her radar and she's already said yes. Randy Pierce, who is a local celebrity in the blind community. Randy is sight impaired and has his own nonprofit. He's participated and really promoted and supported the event in years past. We of course have our sponsors. Some of our major sponsors have people who will participate as well. So we're working on that team. If you happen to know somebody who's a celeb who might be interested, definitely just connect me or Samantha, and we'll do that, and see how that goes. We have in the years past had the mayor. We had both of our sitting Congress people, not the mayor, the governor, both of our sitting Congress people participate personally as well. It's on the governor's calendar for consideration, not necessarily committed yet, because it's a little bit further out and they're not 100% sure what the calendar looks like yet. So yes,
Cynthia just said that, Mike, you're our biggest celebrity, so I would agree with that. And
that is a seriously low that is like, if that's the best we can do, then yeah.
And I think what started out as a flooding therapy technique for your fear of heights, Mike, has actually turned into some very good events for United Way and for the community. Because I recall when you first introduced these two ideas to the board, we were kind of like, what are you talking about? And then it took off from there. So these have turned into some very successful and known events out in the community. So congratulations on that. And it's great work for the community. So
thank you. I appreciate that, Bob.
Mike, I'm sorry if I missed it. Are you still looking for teams as well, or do you have enough teams?
We are looking for I would probably say we could accept 1 or 2 teams, but not a large number of teams. You, by the way, at Southern Hampshire Health, you have a team, if you're not aware of it.
I know that.
But we are definitely still looking for a couple of nonprofit partners. One of the ways in which we've made this more open to new partners is we instituted a small team concept where you can sign up for a team of 3 instead of a team of 6. It's a little less expensive. It's a little lower of a bar for fundraising requirements, and it opens up to more participation. So we have a bunch of teams of 3, and we certainly could accept a couple of those. The Boy Scouts just signed up for that earlier in the week.
Mike, can C6s sign up or just C3s?
C6s can't fundraise for themselves. They could they could fundraise. You know, one of the things you could do, for example, with the chamber is we've acted as fiscal agent in years past for the chamber's LGN projects, like the Legacy Playground and some of their other projects. And if the chamber wanted to fundraise for a specific project that had a charitable purpose, we could find a way to have the chamber raise money for that purpose and keep it in United Way funds and distribute it for the purpose like we would with other types of fiscal agencies, but not necessarily for like an unrestricted purpose directly to the organization.
Right. Because I did it before you forgot me.
I'm sorry, Wendy. That's true too. Wendy, by the way, yeah, and this is one of our criteria for new members. Wendy has done the Blizzard Blast. Wendy has slept in the box. Wendy has gone over the edge. What has Wendy not done? She's not done skydiving. I'm just gonna say, you know, it's a little disappointing, Wendy. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, there's room for over the edge, and now is definitely the time to be looking at that. I'm going to wrap up here just in the remaining couple of minutes, talking a little bit about advocacy. And I think Deb is still on the line, and also our Friday United broadcast. So advocacy work is we have a small subcommittee that includes myself. It's chaired by Deb. John is on that committee, and we also have an attorney from Bernazani Law who participates. So it's a really small subcommittee. We meet monthly, and we look at issues that are in particular percolating at the State House. We also look at local issues as well, and find where are the places in which we want to bring the United Way voice to the table. And we've had a couple of those instances. You know, over the years we've had a lot, and then every session we have a bunch. There are a couple of wins I wanted to point to where we played a vocal role. One was the investment in the Affordable Housing Fund, which is managed by New Hampshire Housing. We advocated for an expansion of dollars there into affordable housing. We, of course, all know that affordable housing is a critical issue in our community. It's a workforce issue. It's just generally a key issue, and if we're going to really be serious about taking a stab at ending homelessness, we actually have to have homes for people that they can afford. So that's the math is pretty straightforward. So that went through, and we were proud to have a voice at that table. We also advocated on behalf of a piece of legislation that would include in Medicaid benefits and expansion to include dental care. That was a bill introduced by Cynthia Rosenwald. That seems to be, I believe that's been tabled for this session, but we'll certainly come back if it has been.
So they did write the funding into the Senate version of the budget, so it is moving forward through that path.
Thank you, Deb. I was not aware of that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
That happened last week.
Okay, and a lot of things got stuck in the budget this time around that are things that you wouldn't normally think of as budget items. Another piece of legislation which we advocated for, which passed almost with no dissent, was to enable school districts to use surplus foods that they receive in their food programs to repackage those foods and make those into ready-to-go meals, which old people like me would call TV dinners, if you think of that, and then to partner with school districts to partner with nonprofits to distribute that food to families and children in need. So that's fantastic. It's enabling legislation that we're talking with our school district about. Well, now how do we implement this? Because there is a lot of surplus food that they do receive, and schools are really good at having lots of food and making it into food that can be eaten by young people, but they're not great at distributing it in the community. And that's where nonprofits can play a role, and nonprofits don't have access to the food. So it can create that kind of really beautiful win-win partnership. And we're excited about that. And so those are a couple of the pieces about advocacy. Anybody who's interested in joining the advocacy committee, reach out to me or Deb. It's a really different kind of activity at United Way. And it's very interesting and a different perspective on local and statewide issues. Last thing I want to mention is Fridays United. So we started about 2 months ago, just as an experiment, every Friday at noon, doing a Facebook Live. And sometimes it's from a local nonprofit, sometimes it's talking about something we're doing, and just for 5-8 minutes, something like that, doing a relatively hokey kind of a Facebook. And so usually it's me and Samantha. You know, our gig is usually there's some dressing up and or odd hat involved. And we go to places like we've been to the Dental Connection. We did the ribbon cutting for our Little Free Food Pantry. We've been to the St. Joseph's Mobile Health Clinic, did a sort of a walking tour of that. We've been over to the Police Athletic League. This Friday, we'll be on the top of the Brady Sullivan Tower, talking about Over the Edge. The interesting thing is that it's getting a lot of views. You know, we have over 3,000 followers on our Facebook page. And so far, our feed has, these videos have been viewed around 15,000 times. So people actually tune in and watch. And maybe that's because people are bored on Fridays at noon. Maybe it's because people are starting to look forward to it. Whatever the case may be, it seems like it's a super easy way for us to promote the goodness in our community. And at the end of the day, if there's not, if there's a single thing which is kind of in the United Way mission, it's promoting the goodness in a community. And so I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to continue to do that every single Friday. And just in this very simple format, go somewhere, talk about something, hi and bye. And if any of you has a suggestion of a place or a thing, a place to be or a thing to talk about, just let me or Samantha know, and we would love to do that. That is about it for me. If anybody has any questions, I see Liz posted in the chat that the Community Connections Forum is coming up. That's also on your agenda, by the way, and we would love it for as many people as possible to participate in that. And we appreciate also Southern New Hampshire Health and the Chamber of Commerce and the Regional Planning Commission for being partners with us at the table to make that happen. Bob?
Oh, you're turning it back to me? No.
I think so. Why not?
All
Let me
right.
put the agenda back up on the screen.
Yeah. Well, I think we are ready to hear from John and Joe to talk about the current situation with our two big medical providers in our community, in our region. I don't know if they have an order here, but they're in order on the agenda as John starting and then Joe. So why don't I turn it over to John?
All right, Mike, I don't know if you have my slides.
I have your slides, and I know that Joe said he wants to drive himself, which is fine. I would ask you the same. Do you want me to pull them up, or do you want to do that yourself?
Oh,
up to you, John.
If you could do the honors, that'd be great.
Okay, so just give me 1 second to get that queued up, and
And thanks for those updates, Mike. There's obviously a lot going on with United Way and in the community. So it's good to hear about that and all the involvement from members of this council and the board and all the volunteers. It's been tremendous. And I think people tune in Fridays because they like to hear from Samantha. So
there's no question about that. Samantha is absolutely the big draw there. It's definitely not me. Let's see, putting this up as a slideshow. Okay, I'm gonna minimize that and share screen. PowerPoint. The new PowerPoint is weird when you do screen sharing. There we go. You should see a picture of what looks like a hospital on Kinsley Street. Is this the case?
It is there.
All righty. Why don't you go to the next slide, Mike? So today I just wanted to give you a brief update about what have we learned in the past 14 months. And boy, you know, I've been in healthcare since 1982, working as many of you know, I'm a pharmacist by training, but started off as an intern. And, you know, never in my career have I ever seen anything like a pandemic. And I think that can be said for everyone in the community. But the one thing I want to say, and I'm relatively new to Nashua, I'll be coming up on 3 years in August. I think what was so overwhelming was the degree of community support for your healthcare organizations in the community. It was so humbling to see people just like calling us, showing up, bringing us food. People we didn't even know, businesses in the community that reached out, and I'm sure Joe will say the same occurred at Southern New Hampshire Health and Jonathan at Dartmouth Hitchcock. It was just so humbling. On the left, you see the first responder tribute. Certainly, I think about mid-April when yours truly, you know, with it's, you know, leading a hospital of 1,500 employees, worrying every night, where the heck am I going to find PPE? It just didn't exist. I mean, I remember early pandemic, the CEOs of the hospitals in the state of New Hampshire, I was on a call with DHHS Commissioner Shibinette, and you could hear the fear in her voice that not only was the national strategic stockpile empty, but basically you're on your own states to find PPE, and people pulling out credit cards at the state level, at the institutional level, and buying PPE at overinflated prices and not knowing if it was going to show up. So, you know, when you see folks from the community just showing up with food and mask construction and like our folks at the Merrimack Home Depot, you know, out of the goodness of, you know, their heart, they, you know, we get a call, would you like some PPE? And we show up to a scene like this, you know, and you just, it's so humbling. And so I just want to, you know, really say a big thank you to everyone who was a part of supporting your healthcare organizations in the greater Nashua community. And that includes United Way, the Rotary Club of Greater Nashua. I mean, you guys, you know, everyone was there to give us a hand. So the next slide. So what have we learned? Well, we learned that the supply chain was clearly broken. Many of the products that we depend on in healthcare were in a production model or production framework where it was just-in-time supply. Because of strict price undercutting, raw materials to make some of these products basically was down to one supplier. You know, even in the summer, we learned about what's called the nitrile glove shortage, which, you know, there was only one plant in Malaysia who made the world supply of rubber gloves for the medical industry. We call them nitrile gloves. And it's just like, how could that be? And so there's a lot of work being done to give incentives to build up supply locally, because as I said, the national strategic stockpile was empty. To look at giving incentives to really bring about other sources of raw materials. We still have raw materials. You hear about cars. in the fact that, there's a shortage of new cars in some makes and models because of a chip shortage. So this is a valuable lesson. I mean, as a healthcare organization, my job is to keep, and as a major employer, my job is to keep our workforce safe. And that fear that, oh my God, they could be wearing garbage bags with holes for arms and head, like we saw in New York City. So, you never want to have that situation. The next area is behavioral health. It certainly has called the attention to the need for expanded behavioral health. Certainly, as we talk about telehealth, that's been a great way to improve access. And we see one of the segments of tremendous growth in the medical specialties has been telehealth support of behavioral health counseling. Behavioral health is becoming really even key for workforce development, and certainly healthcare workers, were already kind of frazzled, and now you add to that a pandemic, long hours, fear of contracting the virus as you practice your craft, and then on top of that, we layer in the most recent events of violence entering the workforce. Sadly, yesterday, another mass shooting at a place of employment. And certainly, Dr. Leahy has seen it. We've seen it here at St. Joe's, where you have increasing levels of violence coming into your emergency department. And the recipients of that is really, your frontline healthcare workers. So that can be very traumatizing, and certainly long hours, with this fear that you could contract a deadly virus, that has a wearing effect. So behavioral health, I think it even has called more attention to the investment that we need to make in terms of behavioral health. And then certainly telehealth, our biggest advocacy point for that has been that it increases access. But just because you're not physically coming to a doctor's office doesn't mean it costs less to deliver. 70% of a healthcare organization's expenses are labor, and the same labor is needed for telehealth. And so therefore, we've been really strongly advocating for parity in terms of payments from third-party insurers at parity with face-to-face visits. That has been supported so far by the Congress as well as the state legislature, but something to watch as we lift the state of emergency nationally, all the parity and payment for telehealth for Medicare patients, which represent in this community probably are close to 50% of our patients, that payment parity will disappear. So patients with chronic disease who are more homebound or quasi-homebound, or patients still in the fear of contracting the virus, their insurance, Medicare, will not cover that visit, going forward if the state of emergency is lifted and we don't have appropriate legislation to ensure parity. I've already talked about workforce and some of the challenges workforce has had, but certainly workforce has become strategic. In my discussion with other leaders of healthcare systems in New Hampshire, workforce next year is huge. We have to really look at growing from within, looking at folks in other industries who want to come into healthcare. How do we make it easier? We're very fortunate that we have an accredited School of Nursing attached to the hospital, and that we offer an associate's degree. Last year, we graduated 120 nurses. We also had a medical assistance degree program. And again, some of these entry-level roles like phlebotomists, nursing assistants, receptionists, we can't find can't find them. And we're not any different than other organizations. And so we just recently, through a workforce grant, started a phlebotomy program, and we have 12 students in it. So more and more workforce in healthcare, especially as the acuity is increasing, is going to be a challenge. And then lastly, vaccine technology. Certainly, the COVID, regardless of what your opinion is on the COVID vaccine, the technology that was employed to rapidly bring a solution to the pandemic to market is just phenomenal. The fact that you're not injecting a dead virus or a weakened virus into the host, our bodies, but you're using a substance that mimics the key proteins in the virus that triggers disease is just phenomenal. It was around for about 10 years back in the Ebola and the H1N1 era, the bird flu, but now you have this new technology that will bring vaccination forward in a much more rapid sense. It's really it's amazing for a vaccine that's been administered to hundreds of millions of people worldwide, and to have the efficacy rate of 95% effective, and the fact that we may not have long-term data, but we certainly have clear mass numbers that shows relative safety of vaccine. And we have to, and another thing to think about is that, as the population of the planet grows, and we're, over 7 billion right now, and as it continues to grow and the disparity between the haves and the have-nots continues to widen, you're going to see in the environment, in nature, the emergence of these super viruses. They're coming a little bit faster than they used to, and to have that technology is just phenomenal. So this is what I would say, like our big 5 areas of learning out of the pandemic. The next slide, Mike. So doing our part to vaccinate the community, all the healthcare providers in Greater Nashua have been really, asked to and willingly stepped up to help the community. And that includes the mass vaccination clinics, the one that was previously at Nashua High School South, now at Pheasant Lane Mall. Just, what is really coming out of this is that more and more of the hospital systems in New Hampshire are becoming the public health safety network in partnership with the community health centers, the mental health centers, the 2 public health accredited divisions in Nashua and Manchester in the region. We are the safety net system. The fact that the state legislature, the House, took out 200 positions out of DHHS's budget post-pandemic kind of reinforces that, hospitals, you're going to have to step it up. And, we do that as our mission, but it's really starting to get us to think of how are we more of a partner for the long-term health of the community versus being a center for acute episodic care. So that really is changing our role in the community for Greater Nashua. So next slide. So, it isn't like we didn't have enough to do, but yours truly is I push people. And one of the biggest areas of opportunity for the community that needed resources was senior behavioral health. Senior behavioral health is geriatric psychiatry. And what that is that it is, a means to treat patients who are of advanced age. I don't mean to say if you're 65 or older, you're advanced age, but kind of that's our cutoff. Who have a psychiatric diagnosis or have dementia with psychiatric manifestations in complex or co-occurring medical diagnoses. So we found that there was a need. We did an assessment in the region. It showed that we were under-bedded by probably about 62 beds. And we used Southern New Hampshire. The only beds that were in existence for senior behavioral health were at the Elliott, still are. And yet there was, double-digit need on the order of 60 plus beds needed beyond those beds at the Elliott for senior behavioral health. Part of that is the community is aging in place. In our greater Nashua area, about over the next 5 years, the 65 plus population will grow about 20%. When you start to expand out to the PSA of Nashua, that's around 26%. So the need again for behavioral health, especially post-pandemic, where there is tremendous isolation of the advanced age population, and the need for senior behavioral health. So we started on the mission, we started on the journey, I should say, found a partner in Horizon Health. They operate 38 hospital-based units. We began construction on September 15th, and through a lot of advocacy and support from both our congressional delegation as well as our state senatorial delegation, we were able to move mountains in terms of the regulatory approval process. And within 90 days, we treated our first patient. So this unit is 24 beds. Right now, our ADC, or average daily census, is around 10 patients. We are staffed to take 16, and then we need to recruit additional staffing. But we have the ability to take 24. And even if we fill those 24 beds between the Elliott and St. Joe's, there will still be a need that could fill another 20 plus beds easily over the next 5 years. So the biggest challenge, of course, is finding psychiatrists. And we were very fortunate to have Dr. Marshall, trained at Dartmouth Hitchcock, experience in both acute psychiatric and geriatric psychiatry. Maria Jackson's our program manager. And, $5.4 million later, we opened a senior behavioral health unit. And so now we've just been getting the word out. It's hard when you can't do face-to-face and get in front of groups and start talking about the service to kind of get that message out. But we really saw the demographic changes. We saw the lack of capacity, and we really, put all our effort at the tail end of a pandemic. Of course, it opened when Surge 2 hit Nashua, where our acute side, 40% of our patients in January were COVID positive. So that's pretty much our update. Out of the ashes of the pandemic comes a lot of learning and actually some new services. So I'll turn it back to you, Mike. And
thank you, John. That was an incredible overview. We really do appreciate that. And you guys have done an amazing work. So, and been a fantastic partner with us and with everybody else in the community too. So thank you for putting that together for us. Joe, I've made you the ability to screen share. So if you want to do that, you can do that at any time.
There you go. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep. And the slide is on the screen as well.
All right. So I didn't mess anything up. Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. I have to say it's kind of challenging. I think John stole most of my thunder. So it's kind of like another comedian following another comedian on the stage and telling the same jokes. but I think that was a great presentation and certainly hit home on a lot of things that we experienced. And that was pretty much what I was going to be planning for this talk as well, is kind of take a little walk down memory lane and then kind of bring you up to what, you know, we see the future holding here. And probably going through a little bit of PTSD in the interim. So bringing you back a little bit and telling you a little bit about myself. Excuse me. I've been in Nashua for 23 years as an emergency physician. This picture here was taken last February or February 2020. It's my wife Kathy and my daughter Megan. Megan has always wanted to go to New York City, so we took the opportunity during February break to take a few days in New York. We had a wonderful time. Did some Broadway shows, and this is actually Times Square. And again, looking at the date, the world was suddenly going to change in our East Coast area. We had some COVID on the West Coast, but nothing on the East Coast really had materialized up until this point. Actually, March 1st, New York City had their first case of COVID. So right after we left, they had their first case. March 2nd, New Hampshire had their first COVID case, or I should say we. March 11th, the World Health Organization had declared COVID as a pandemic. Actually, and then March 13th, Governor Sununu declared a state of emergency. And this is actually a picture from the city of Nashua's press conference that same day, talking about emergency operations in the city. And I think to John's point, the community really started to work together, and it was really an amazing experience from that perspective. Not that I'd ever want to have to go through that again, but I think during this time of February and March, it really, from the healthcare perspective, it was really drinking from a fire hose. We were trying to get as much information as we could about what we were going to expect, and really, you know, unlike any other disease where there was studies and lots of information to kind of guide us, we were really just trying to learn from the experiences of other countries. Italy predominantly was having just a horrible experience. And, you know, learning what they did, what worked, what didn't work, was certainly helpful. And, you know, the internet, good or bad, was extremely helpful in just trying to keep up to date. March 14th, we opened up an auxiliary or a tent basically for testing. You know, the weather was kind to us at that time. And really, it was, again, a lot of fear in the community. And, you know, there was a lot of worried well. We had locked down the facility to limit people coming and going into the hospital. And obviously doctors' offices didn't have the equipment and they, you know, to protect themselves when somebody's coming in with illnesses. So this was kind of a temporary solution to guide some of that. So we were having an access point for people to come in and get testing. Testing at that point was shipped to the state. And turnaround times began to lengthen to get a test result. So it became more problematic. March 15th, the schools were closed. The 23rd, we had unfortunately our first confirmed death in New Hampshire from COVID. And then March 26th, basically was the closure of non-essential businesses and the New Hampshire stay-at-home order. But through this time, again, as far as observations, you know, the medical community was just learning how to best manage the COVID illness, you know, establishing who were the most at risk. You know, why were some people with, you know, only having mild symptoms while others were critical? And this varied across the spectrum. I mean, we saw 30-year-olds who were on ventilators versus, you know, the 65-year-old who had mild symptoms. And sometimes it just didn't make any sense. And that 30-year-old may not have had any medical issues. So it was very concerning. Obviously, what were the best practices for keeping the patients safe, but also our healthcare professionals? And like John, as director of the emergency department, you know, that was my biggest fear. I was, you know, lots of sleepless nights. I actually did go out and start buying trash bags in the event that we did not have enough PPE coverage. It got dicey. Certainly it never came to that, but you know, again, you heard about horror stories in other places and said you just had to be prepared for anything. And with the lack of toilet paper supplies, certainly the concern was it going to be a run on garbage bags? So we started purchasing some of that. Certainly, you know, again, one of the great things about it was the community outreach. We saw a huge outpouring of support which from a morale perspective was huge, but also in between facilities, talking about who was in dire need of what and trying to get, our meager supplies balanced out so that nobody was in a more serious predicament. And that was, I gotta say, in all my years in Nashville, it was just great to see. It was heartwarming in that respect, and provided a little bit of I guess, solace in that regard. But there was a fear factor involved. I think we saw our emergency department volumes nationally certainly drop 40 to 50%. It was very significant. And, when you think about these people who normally have, strokes and heart attacks and things like that, suddenly we're not seeing those things. And the concern was, why aren't we seeing this and what's happening? And trying to get, some messaging out there that it's still safe to come to the emergency department. At one point, we actually divided our emergency department into two areas. One that was kind of for respiratory and, flu, fever kind of complaints, and the other portion of it for the, the run of the mill, ankle sprains and belly pains and things like that. Unfortunately, one of the things we learned from it was that, the ankle sprain probably had COVID and the person with the fever probably didn't. And after a while and trying to staff that, we said, you know what, we just have to do what we can, the best we can by opening things up, because it was so unpredictable. And then certainly losing workforce to exposures and stuff was also a big challenge. So that really made it quite difficult, and just another layer of stress. The hope that COVID would run its course by fall, and it was, dashed by a second wave in November and December. Again, as far as community outpouring, the first responder acknowledgements were huge. This is just a picture of EMS, fire, police, coming together and meeting our workforce in a show of solidarity and support. Life events were altered, obviously, as you all, I'm sure, have felt. This is my son, Joe and Mitchell. My son graduated from the University of New England. Unfortunately, his graduation was canceled, so we had a graduation in our backyard with a very small gathering of our family outside, socially distanced. And of course, we, the one benefit, he got to be valedictorian, so that was certainly a bonus. But for everything else, I mean, certainly funerals, life events, are certainly were altered. Drive-bys for funerals, which were, never before seen, were other celebrations. And I think that may portend to some of the, aspects we might see in the future as far as mental health. But this just shows a quick graph of some of the cases of COVID. You see early in on the left part of that graph is the March, where we were burning through PPE and everything else for a lot of, worried cases. And again, I think one thing I mentioned, we canceled elective cases, elective surgical cases, just to conserve the PPE supplies that we had. But it really wasn't until in November, December, where we saw a significant spike. And it was a great learning experience back in March and April, but and it did help us prepare for November, December. I think had we seen the numbers November, December back in March, we would have really been in a world of hurt for supplies and preparations. And I think I think we would have seen a significant change in our numbers for deaths and everything related to that. So I think we were fortunate there. Currently, obviously, we're talking about variants. Telemedicine is a huge aspect, which was very helpful. We were, when identified, going into a room, you'd have to prep up with PPE. Going in through multiple times in emergency departments certainly risked that PPE. So telemedicine was huge in a way of getting communication with patients and families. And continues to be, and hopefully will continue to grow even more. Vaccinations, I think, certainly some very helpful things. There's lots of media and lots of, drama around vaccinations, but the reality is that, they are safe, they are effective. There's a recent study that we've had over 100 million Americans vaccinated. Out of those vaccinations, and again, because they were never 100%, they've said about 10,000 of those vaccinated have actually developed COVID. That is a very, very low number, less than 1%, far less than 1% of our population, it's 0.001, I think, percent or something. So it's significant, and getting the word out that it's safe. I think encouragingly, there was an article in the Boston Globe. There were 70% of the New England population has at least received one vaccine for COVID. We're leaders in the country in that regard, which is great to hear and see. The mask, no mask debate, unfortunately, politics getting involved with healthcare, you say what you will, but, it's unfortunate that, political views have kind of crept into the discussion of vaccines and masks and who's right and who's wrong. And really, it's all about the patient and just, and safety of our healthcare force. So hopefully that will subside. Mental health, I think, is really, the bigger concern going forward. And what we're seeing now, we are seeing an uptick in the number of children having mental health issues. The other day we have a behavioral health annex as part of our emergency department, and 4 out of the 6 beds had kids 16 or less. We've never had something like that before, but we're seeing an uptick in that, and the effects of what has happened in the past and how it's kind of affecting our youth, I think, is certainly something to consider. I just mentioned high acuity patients. We are seeing, I think, a bit of higher acuity in our emergency departments. I think in part we still see, we've had people, I personally have people who have had strokes who just delayed their arrival to the emergency department because of their fear of coming in to a setting that may potentially have COVID, and certainly time when in a stroke is vitally important. But another issue, certainly medical professional burnout. I think this year has taken its toll on healthcare providers, healthcare clinicians, anyone associated with healthcare. And we are seeing some people retiring early. We're seeing people looking for other areas of healthcare outside of hospitals. And it is very challenging to hire right now. And that certainly is a big concern for us going forward, as John mentioned. I think telemedicine is here to stay. I think for any of you who've had a telemedicine appointment, it's kind of slick to be sitting in your home and having a conversation with your doctor and not having to go anywhere, especially if you've had care, at either Dartmouth or in Boston. You can connect and go from there. As far as social aspects, again, things are changing, things are warming up, which is encouraging to see. But the mental health community resources, we were challenged previously with resources for mental health, certainly. And I think going forward, that is a big concern. And hopefully there'll be growing efforts to bolster those resources for us, because I think that's the one burning platform we still have in this community, and we still need. And I think, we're doing things in the senior behavioral health unit that John mentioned. That's huge for us. I think that's a great thing to have, a great resource for the community. And we still don't know a lot. And I think that's the biggest challenge is, for things that have been brought on by COVID, loss of sense of smells. For some people, they haven't gotten their sense of smell back. Is there long-term cardiac effects, long-term pulmonary effects? What are the emotional effects for these people who have had COVID, who may have been in the ICU for 2 weeks or 3 weeks before they were actually out of the ICU? And how does that lay into it? And again, there's another layer of mental health that we have to be concerned about there. And those are all things we can answer as far as that. Hopefully, there won't be long-term effects. Encouragingly, as far as the vaccines, it appears that the vaccines are at least good for a year of protection, but they're starting to think that it might be a long-term, might be lifelong benefit. We just don't know that yet. And again, studies will hopefully tell us a little bit more. Telementoring, along with telemedicine, remote education has been huge as far as learning how to deal with COVID, but certainly for new clinicians coming in and a limited number of educators, can we bring that educator to the bedside in some capacity using that as a leverage for kind of getting the younger group of medical professionals some education. Hospital at home programs are something that I think is another wave of the future. If we have some people who maybe have lower level illnesses, can they be treated at home with nurse practitioners and visitation and telemedicine, and getting those kind of medical evaluations and care in their home environment, I think is something that we'll be seeing. And then data-driven decision-making. We are getting a lot of data and a lot of very new technology, which is very encouraging, where, a chest x-ray could be interpreted by artificial intelligence, and some of the results may be better than, your average radiologist. And can that guide care? And I certainly think it will. So lots of exciting things there. So as you may have seen going around town and everything else, we're starting to get back to normal. And we hope to get to this next step where we're all, again, feeling comfortable out in the environment in large gatherings. This is my son, Mitchell. He just graduated this past weekend. And it's, you know, it's exciting, but certainly along the way, a lot of great learning, a lot of great collaboration. And I can't thank the United Way and the community enough for their support. And I think that is all I have for you.
Thank you so much, John and Joe. This was a great overview. We're actually out of time, so I don't think we have opportunity for asking a lot of questions at this point, although I will leave the channel open, the Zoom open for after the meeting for anybody who wants to stay on and ask you guys any questions or have any discussion. But we are out of time. We're at the end of we're at 9 o'clock. I just wanted to mention June 12th is Skydive United at Skydive Pepperell. Please come and watch me cry like a baby as we jump out of a plane for ending youth homelessness in our community. I'll be sending out an invitation for that to everybody. Our next advisory council meeting will be hybrid, hopefully hybrid, at United Way and on Zoom on July 22nd. People who are coming will be those who are vaccinated and will not be wearing masks in the meeting in person. The mayor texted his apologies. His internet went out. I think we all know how that is, and that's just how the world is these days. He'll probably be able to do the Gate City Light Award for us at our next meeting. Liz mentioned on June 10th is our Community Connections Forum. Again, that's open to everybody, and I know she'll be sending out a reminder to everybody. And last but very not least, if you have any businesses, especially larger businesses that you think might be a good location for an on-site vaccination clinic, please let Liz or me or Samantha know about that, and we will, Liz will end up appropriately following up with them and with the public health department to see if we can arrange an on-site clinic. And with that, I'm going to stop recording, and I want to thank everybody for your time this morning. Bob, if you have any other concluding remarks, and thanks everybody for everything you do.
Yeah, if I can thank everybody for sticking in here, and those were great presentations. Thanks, John and Joe. That's great information. I know Liz popped something in the chat about some sort of community conversation around some of this stuff. I think that could be very beneficial. I know public health has been working diligently to get messaging out around this, and since day one, and have heard many of these voices and seen many of these faces on phone calls and Zoom calls since the beginning of this pandemic. So that was great information, good context. Just to mention, the public health department, along with my department, we're moving back to 18 Mulberry Street at the beginning of the month. So the week of June 7th, we're moving June 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. So that's the challenge of getting stuff packed up in one space, just moving it across town. It might as well be across the country. It's almost the same amount of effort to get that relocated and set up. So there is going to be a continuation of services as best we can, but there may be some limitations in what we do as a public health department and a community services department. So just to put that on people's radar during that week. But again, thank you everybody for participating, and thank you for those great presentations. With that, I don't think if anybody has any other questions or comments.